Hi everybody, Fee Hills here, and I'm introducing you today to a 30-minute mini masterclass on mastering the art of mind nudging. Now, this is really part of a whole 4-week series on learning about mind nudging, and it's really aimed at L&D professionals. And as I said, my name's Fee Hills, and I'm one of the co-founders of Mind Nudger AI. And I want to introduce you to the whole mini-series because this will then sort of put this in context, what we're going to do today. That is only 30 minutes and there is a lot to squeeze in. So today we're really going to put the context in place, the familiarization. What is mind nudging? And then what are the building blocks that make it or can make it happen on the platform itself, or basically how do we build a mind nudging journey, what's in it. Over the next 3 masterclasses, I'll be more talking about the detail about design and delivering these journeys as an L&D professional. So more of the detail. Today, I'm probably not going to go into too much detail on each thing because there's a lot of parts to cover, as you will see. So let's move on. Thank you for being here. By the way, the logistics, please do comment if you are live. And if you're in recording, please do DM me with any questions. I will try and answer them. I've got no one to help me here today. I'm all on my lonesome. So, but please do, I'll answer any questions either along the way or if we have time at the end. I want to start with I'm going to call it a problem and a challenge because it is. So I'll call it what it is. And that is that we are all, as a planet and as a human race, going through something that's called the sort of more latter part, but the real sort of visceral part of exponential change. And in L&D, that is manifesting as many providers, not all, of course, is struggling to understand how they remain competitive in what is this exponentially compounding change. And the effects of that is, how do we change learning? How do we change the experience of learning and the outcome? So the challenge really for L&D from our research is to provide customized learning experiences that are more individualized, to make, these learning more engaging, although I have to say that's in some ways the least of the problems. Also, how do we make them work in a more continuous way, and how do we get the outcomes with helping people not to be drowned by the tsunami of change, but instead sort of ride that wave? So how do we do that? And that's been our challenge for the last 4 years as a team. And as a team, we've had, has been very challenging. I absolutely assure you of that. We've worked tirelessly to create the world's first mindset navigation platform, but we're proud of it, where we are now. And there's many constituent parts to this. It is more complex than I'm going to make it look, but suffice to say that the parts are incredibly important to speed up and scale and sustain change. And they're the 3 things, the 3 S's: speed up, scale, and sustain change. It's got to be the goal if we want to survive and thrive through exponential change. And I'm talking particularly here about mindset and behavior transformation, just for today. And I suppose what we're looking at here is mind nudges, themes. These are constituent building blocks. Shared thinking pods, which is sort of social learning. Pop-up experiential learning and emotional health. There's the Mind Nudge Academy, which is a sort of essential part to help L&D professionals understand how to design and deliver the experiences, and also the mind nudges and the nano nudging and so forth. Experiential coaching, on the go facilitation, and all of this is fueled by AI. I will say I will not be focused on AI today because that needs its own masterclass, but I will help you understand that towards the end of the 4 weeks. Coming soon, nano nudging and expert marketplace. So more about that later. Now, moving on my slides. got carried away for a second there. So our goal, really, our mission is to enable L&D professionals and therapists to speed up, scale, and sustain mindset and behavior change. So that's the goal, that's the mission. And this is against the paradigms. So there is a paradigm going on at this moment in time. There's a paradigm shift. And I want to take you through that paradigm shift, particularly where we're coming from, that we're addressing. And that is that shift from traditional programs or content only, so in information share, to more transformative, immersive cohorts, experiential micro-learning journeys. Bit of a mouthful. True, but that's what they are, a learner-centered experiential approach that is more immersive so that we can accelerate that learning, and then it's backed up by all the other technologies in AI to scale and sustain change. So this is what we call mind nudging journeys. So instead of looking at things as a program, we look at it as an experiential immersive journey that not just leaders, but many people can go through, especially when we are focused on mindset and behavior change. So just to take you through one of those journeys, to give you a bit of context, from a high level, this one particularly is on psychological safety for leaders. And it's actually part one of a 12-week journey. And this is 6 weeks, the first part of it, always built on a framework, which is not surprising, like any program. So we have a program of learning. So what do we want to learn? What's the framework? Because without a decent framework, of the house will fall down. So in mind nudging journeys, we're still building on that framework. So each week is a particular mind nudging theme. Now, I don't want to overwhelm you with information here, but this is quite essential. Each week we work on one thing that then takes them through an experiential journey to become more aware about that particular thing, and then be able to work through to change habits, develop techniques and skill. So whilst it seems quite slow with one technique or skill in or habit in a week, it compounds over the life of the journey. And of course, if you do more and more continuous journeys, happy days. Now, normally a mind nudging journey, we say the mind nudging side takes about 30 minutes a week, and that is on the go. So a lot of that is really priming the mind and the unconscious mind as you're going about your day anyway. So we're talking minutes at a time to actually consciously do something. And that's important. Why? Because time really is the new currency, isn't it? In this day and age, we all seem to be overwhelmed and very short of time, which is very sad. So what comes next is blended approach to, so we've got a mind nudging journey. We've got a process of going through it, and that's works through the center of that is that mind nudging. But to blend a journey is extremely, I can't tell you how important it is. We can't just have a mind nudging journey, clearly not. So blended approach to this new way of doing things is what we call it a pop-up experiential learning, which is like a pop-up but an experiential type workshop for 30 minutes or usually about 30 minutes. It can be longer, can be 60 minutes. And also, another constituent part of a journey would be social learning, so shared thinking pods, and underlying that gamified. So here we have a mind nudging journey, which we call the perfect type blend. And I liken this to a chef. You can have all the ingredients, but if you don't put it together properly, you will not get either the great outcome you want, which is a great meal, or necessarily a great experience either, i.e. doesn't taste right. So depending on the lots of things like complexities of logistics, the audience, depends on your blend of the journey, time they have, so many things depend on how you design your journey in terms of blend. But what usually is included is mind nudging themselves, which I will show you an example of, that building block. Pop-up workshops and coaching, like I said, always experiential. I say always experiential. there is a need for information for context, like a masterclass or anything like that. But when we're talking about pop-ups, we're normally talking about experiential sessions. Shared thinking pods, which is really about getting people to take action and change using that social accountability, if you like, and then gamifying that experience through as appropriate, because gamified is not always appropriate and many times it is. So it's understanding where to put the gamified experience within that, again depending on understanding your audience, your logistics, the environment, the time. All of that contributes to how you blend that journey. And then underpinning that, excuse me, it's Monday and it is a bank holiday here in the UK, just like to add that in, is live facilitation. So yes, we are driven on as a platform, even through these journeys, to be driven by AI and different types of AI. But fundamentally, we are led by the human. So if you go up Everest, or I would go up Everest, God forbid, and you would want to be led by a Sherpa, I would want to be led by a Sherpa who not only knows the way, but is very experienced along the way to guide me and keep me as safe as possible given the challenge. So this is the same here. We are going on a journey that requires a lot of experience from the guide, and to understand the complexity, that facilitator needs to guide you through that experience. The secret is on the go. And that's why the process is very, very different, because it's an iterative approach that can be done anywhere in the world. What's the massive upside here? Because the live facilitation on the go means the facilitator can work also from anywhere in the world. That's not to say that all of the pop-ups and things can't be done in person or virtual. So more about that afterwards. Now, I want to focus on something that is extremely important, dear to my heart, and that is the method. Everything in the MindNudger AI platform has been led by method, not technology. And what do I mean by that? What I'm showing here is not the AI methodologies, though as I said, we'll show you that towards the end of the series. It's about the content design. And that content is shifting from trainer-centered or teacher-centered, as they sometimes call it, to learner-centered, or as they sometimes call it, student-centered. So the learner, the participant, is at the center of the experience of that design. And whilst that might sound really easy, and in some ways it is, it seems to be a massive paradigm shift for many people to get their head around, to understand the difference between trainer-centered and learner-centered and how to design in learner-centered material. That's been one of our biggest challenge, to help people through. Just going to have a sip of my coffee. Well deserved, I'm nearly halfway. Excuse me. So let's look at, this is not a new methodology, by the way, and it's called EPIC. And it's not new, and it's been tested, validated, should we say, on thousands of people. So we're in safe hands here in terms of it working transformatively. So what's the experience and outcome in here and going through this type of content versus information only based content? So again, I'm not saying information is not important and not interesting and not worthy. All of that is true. What's happening at the moment, though, is that method of trainer-centered is way out of balance with learner-centered. So the faster the speed of change, the more we need to go learner-centered. It's as simple as that. And I'll go more into that as the classes unravel. So anyway, EPIC stands for experiential, playful, iterative, and collaborative. So let me take you through those a little bit more detail from a high level. So we have experiential learning is a process of acquiring knowledge, but then we bring our own stuff to it. So in terms of design, this means we create the environment. Everybody brings their complexities to it. But if we want to create new knowledge, solve problems and so forth from a new perspective, we have to go experiential. So depending on what we're trying to do in learning, experiential in essence is extremely important. But no doubt if you're in L&D, you already know that. But there's a big difference between interactive training and experiential learning. I am talking here about experiential learning. Immersive experience where we observe, reflect, adapt, repeat. So that is, we're immersing ourselves, we're observing, we're reflecting where the learning happens, and then we're adapting in a very iterative way. So playful learning is different, it's still experiential, but playful learning is appropriate for certain things like creativity, problem solving, maybe some parts of emotional health development, and some other things. And it's an essential part of human development. Absolutely. There's a guy called Stuart Brown. Really recommend you look up his work. He's an amazing neuroscientist on the neuroscience of play. If you want to find out more about it. But playful learning isn't appropriate for everything. So we have to know when to put play in and when to be a bit more serious. And yeah, but obviously play is very, very powerful. The next thing is the I, which is iterative learning. I don't need to sell this, do I, to you? So this is iterative learning, agile, think compound, think little at a time. Think in our world, mindset and behavior change, just think habit change, routine development. I would say routine more. Yeah, definitely think more habit change, definitely think learning execution. You can't do learning execution without including iterative development. So if I just do a workshop development with you, that will not mean that can embed the learning or help you execute the learning. It's just not going to happen. So I could teach you a model, fantastic model, brilliant. How do I execute on that model? That's where all of this other things comes together. This is where this methodology and the rubber hits the road. So iteration is absolutely essential. That's why this works so well, if we put the right bits in the middle of that iteration. So habit change, collaborative learning. You wouldn't, in this day and age, try anything without social, because social learning, not just to solve problems, which is essential, not just to support each other, which is critical with the mental health problem and emotional health problem and so forth, but, you know, effectively to create new knowledge, which is the game. So what EPIC does is help us create new knowledge at scale. And it's all of these things that come together. Neither one thing really, I would like to say, is more important than the other. So let's take a look at a Mind Nudge weekly theme. I said earlier that with tends to be 1 week, one theme. In the mind nudging sort of vein that goes through these journeys. Then we're talking a process called aura, which is observe, reflect, adapt, repeat. When we want continuous learning, observe, reflect, adapt. So we're observing Monday. Typically, we don't have to follow this routine. We find this is a good routine. And you get a Monday mind nudge in the morning, and it's priming your mind for the day. So you haven't actually got to do anything. You listen to an audio Bible, you read the instruction, and you're primed with a mind nudge that primes your conscious and unconscious mind for that day as you're going about the day. And the next day, hopefully, because you're going to observe. What that does is raise the self-awareness about that particular thing, whatever that may be. On that journey, we saw the first thing was Outcast, which was all about inclusion, which is funny because it was called Outcast, but it's a mind game. And then we'd observe that, see how that feels like, have that inner awareness, raise the awareness. Wednesday comes, we need to reflect, because the learning does not happen on the experience or the observation, it happens on the reflection of that. So now Wednesday, the rubber hits the road, doesn't it, really? To an extent, we're like, aha, this is what I do. So I was a leader and I'm excluding people. That will now be in my awareness. So I'm going to reflect on that. How can I change that? Do I want to change that? And so forth. Because the learning is theirs. It's learner-centered. It's not for you to say that someone has to change, of course, which is obvious. But we create that environment that allows them that space to observe and reflect. And then Friday, the system takes over and takes the action, and all of the processes come into place. So how do I change that? How am I going to be accountable to change that? And it's a process. So you can see this is very, very much a process, as well as content coming together as methodology. It is actually a process. What the technology does is just integrate it and allow it to happen as a flow. So this is an audio vibe. Now, I can't actually play this, but basically it's 4 minutes long. So we're going to have to go into our imagination here. It's 4 minutes long, and it allows you, sometimes it's 2 minutes long. This one is 4 minutes long, and it could basically last as long as 5 minutes, absolute maximum, but usually on average 3 minutes, which is, you listen to it, have your morning refreshment, whatever that may be. In my case, it's coffee. And actually, I think I might have a sip of my coffee on that note. And this one's called Assumption Police. It's a mind nudge, particular technique and skill development. And it's pretty obvious it's called Assumption Police. So what it allows us to do is raise our awareness about when and not to make assumptions, and, you know, the implications of that. Now, so we listen to the audio vibe, but if we don't want to, voila, you can just go and read it. So you just ignore the audio vibe, move on to the mind nudge itself. Now, what you notice here is the mind nudge, well, the audio vibe will have more context, so it'll have an introduction to it. But you can see from the mind nudge, as today's mind nudge, as you go about your day, listen, learner-centered. You're going to do the work. The difference between learner-centered is you're going to do the work. The learner is, because they're the immersive one in the experience, they have to do the work. So I'm guiding you like a Sherpa through that, and your introspection as you go about your day, you're going to actually do the work, but then I've triggered you, and, or rather the mind nudge has, and I've triggered you and also given you an anchor so that you can automatically remember or be triggered as you're going about your day to remember that. But what this is also helping to do is embed that for later. So it's embedding that habit in a very iterative way. Now you can see this as an observation. By Wednesday, on a Wednesday, it would say reflection. And on a Friday, it's not really a mind nudge. You just put your, you know, into the system, your actions and how you're going to change. So a little bit about the pop-up, because time is moving on. We have 8 minutes left. And pop-up experiential learning sessions, as I said, usually 30 minutes. I like 30 minutes ones. Other people prefer them a bit longer. There's no given rule as such, although it usually has to be quite quick. Pop-up experiential sessions allow you to do quick sessions because they accelerate the learning. So whereas you could have a 2-hour workshop, you might walk away with 2 techniques, could pretty much do the same in 30, 60 minutes. In-person or virtual, we are moving towards, with pop-up emotional health cafes, face-to-face. So totally depends, again, down to client needs, organizational needs, group needs, whatever it may be. And also virtual works in some ways. If you've got a global team, you have no choice, but in-person has, depending on the subject, has its value. So facilitated sessions, these are always facilitated, of course, as you'd expect, and they're always designed on Epic. So they're pretty much group games or group activities that create that observe, reflect, adapt routine. And as I said, those pop-up emotional health cafes are slightly different because they're not really focused on learning as much as they are emotional health development. So that's pop-up, and that's built into the journey and the system. And then finally, the constituent part of shared thinking pods. Now, shared thinking pods, whilst it is social learning, it's designed in such a way to drive higher order thinking. So we might want to put in a critical thought, and we'd click critical, because I remember critical thought, or creative thought. So my intent behind it is understood when the person's reading my comment, because it's not social media, which is obviously different. So it drives that higher order thinking, or certainly the awareness of that. So we can, at the same time, by using the pods, develop people's higher order thinking skills, and also their ability to empathize through support and so forth. So you put a supportive, inspirational thought in, or whatever it may be. But fundamentally, we're sharing thinking and learning and ideas with the cohort. Our use of this, and over this time, we've learned that the good use of this element of it is for change. So the action part. So say I put an action in it, I can through peer partners. So partnering up, like accountability partners, we can sort of pair people off to be peer partners and then bring them together in the shared thinking pod back with the group. So this allows us to really help people implement the change. So the action part of how do I change, and what difficulty have I had changing, because that's where the real rubber hits the road, is when I'm actually learning something and then putting it into practice and falling down sometimes when I'm doing that in habit change. So to have that shared social support when I'm going through that part of it is really important. Whereas in introspection, not as important. Reflection a bit more, but action definitely. So we are gamifying actions and accountability tools to support that process in the shared thinking pods. So it's a very important part of My Nudger AI, and it's still work in progress to a degree, because our approach to it is very innovative. So 2 seconds, we haven't got long left. So what results? Well, we have a number of case studies, but I'm going to share with you just one particular one to give you some idea of how we're measuring it as well. On participants, 20 participant cohort, we had shared thinking experiences, 439, it's a lot, 4-week journey. 243 peer learning comments, so that's where they're commenting on each other, and 65 to 84% participant engagement. Now that particular one wasn't measured because that was open, it wasn't measured on the outcome within a company, but we can measure that. So the important thing about analytics, which you go more into on week 4 with the AI and so forth, is how do you measure mindset and behavior change? Because if you can't, in this day and age, it's a waste of time. You must be able to measure even a workshop. What was the outcome? Put the analytics in and be able to collate that on a large scale if we want measurable change, and if we want to measure cultural change. But then again, we have to measure cultural change to really survive and thrive in the world of exponential change. So what timing? I didn't even time that. That's amazing. That was luck, right? That I actually finished on time and not over it. So the world's first navigation platform, we are proud. We're a long way to go, by the way. We can only do that with everybody else's input and with time, but we've come a long way. So if you want to subscribe just simply go to our website on mynudger.com, or if you want to arrange a demo, same thing. But the alternative is feel free to direct message me here on LinkedIn or any one of our colleagues in My Nudger AI. So all that's left to say is hopefully see you next Monday for another mini series digging down into a little bit more detail. And if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you very much for listening. I'm actually finished 50 seconds early here. Thank you very much.